First up, I want to welcome Keisha Hum, lead designer at Pinterest. She was formerly at Method, a top consultancy for many years, and she's also a University of Washington grad. And there's a bunch of Pinterest teammates here, Brenna and many others, so make sure to chat with them afterwards. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you up. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Keisha. I'm super excited to talk to you guys about how I've seen design drive impact at Pinterest. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and my journey at the company. I started on growth as a product designer for the acquisition team. And what they really aim to do is to bring new users onto the service. I then transitioned to the activation team, which really onboards those new users that we just collected. And then I'm using my experience on both those teams to now head up design on the advertiser growth team at Pinterest. But enough about me. I'm here to talk to you about how we revamped mobile web at the company. This all started about a year ago. And unfortunately, back in 2017, mobile web had been an untouched platform for a really long time. Since 2012, which is a crazy amount of time. And we were not giving our users a good experience compared to all of our other platforms. And as our international audience grew, there was a lower propensity of users who wanted to actually download mobile apps. And this was because of slower internet speeds and restricted data. And this affected both our new and existing pinners. So what this kind of looks like, these are a bunch of screenshots from the experience. The design elements were pretty inconsistent. We were blocking users from actually seeing the content they wanted to see. And we were asking them to download the app all over the place. These are just 4 separate screens, but we were asking them to do that a lot. The whole thing was a pretty big missed opportunity. So our creative lead at the time, Bo, who's in the audience, can talk to her afterwards, proposed an initiative to our design leadership to invest the resources in fixing this experience. But what was the challenge? We got it through leadership, but what really that meant is that we formed a team that combined PMs and engineers and designers from our core experience team and our growth teams at Pinterest. Why 2 teams, you ask? We had to target 2 different, completely different user groups. One, the people who didn't have accounts today, and then people who already did. So the goals are quite different between those 2 user groups. And what this looked like is that we now had 2 PMs on the project. We had a design lead, myself, working across both teams, an IC designer, and 2 engineering cohorts on each side of the tracks. These teams traditionally did not work towards the same goal. They did not have the same success metrics, and on top of that, we had 2 leadership teams that we all had to report to. So in order for our process not to look like this, we had to come up with a solution. So what we did was we actually designed a clear process to make sure that the team had maximum impact and that we were actually moving as one instead of separately. And by structuring this process, this really enabled designers to have a really clear path forward to make informed design decisions. So I'm going to talk about how we did this, and I'm going to talk about 3 main parts of that process. First is around alignment. The second is around execution, and then most importantly, around the impact that we saw. So diving deep into how you can gain alignment on your teams, the first thing that we did was take our cross-functional team into this thing that we call a workshop. At Pinterest, this is a 3 to 5 day sprint where the whole cross-functional team goes into a separate place in the building and really dives deep on one specific problem. And in this case, our goal was to define the MVP that the team would then go and build. The first thing we did was we mapped the user journey and highlighted pain points. From there, we actually did a feature prioritization exercise that mapped what we wanted to build for the MVP, the V1, and then onto the V2. And then we did a bunch of brainstorming around how to make the current experience way better. The second thing that we did was really identify a clear timeline. This is really to set the goals of the project, and we did this with leadership. We got alignment on when we wanted to ship things, and so we could set the expectations for everyone. And the third thing around alignment is at Pinterest is really about experimentation. We want to create clear experiment plans to ensure that we're designing and building the right things. I'm going to talk about 3 things that we do that really help this process. First is really identifying the user problem. So this is a statement highlighting the user need rather than the business or technology goal. The second is a hypothesis. This is a statement that defines what you're trying to learn. And I think most importantly, a success metric. So this happens cross-functionally, and it really determines the success or failure of your experiment. And at Pinterest, what we do is we put this into a big document. Everyone on the team can edit it and collaborate on it. And the visibility is to the whole company. So now I'm going to dive into execution. The first thing that we always do is cross-functional reviews. So this is 1 to 2 times a week, depending on your team. The cross-functional team gets together to provide design feedback. And what this does is have a chance for everyone to have their opinions heard in the room and gather design feedback to then move forward with the projects. The second thing is handing off with your engineers, common process, but really making sure that the files that you're delivering are things that your engineers can build off of. They have the right information. You have clear variants listed out on your experimentation plan, so everyone's aligned on what you're actually building. And then, of course, a QA process where you can see the experience before it goes out to people. And then once you ship the experiment to people and you start getting data coming in, you have really clear process of what you want to do next. So are you going to iterate on the experience? It's not quite what you wanted to see, so you have to iterate on it. Are you going to ship it because it's a super big win, or are you going to have to shut it down? After that, you would then be able to take your prioritized list of other experiments to then go build so you can drive the project forward. So for mobile web, what did we see? We followed this process for around 7 months, and what was the impact? So we saw a huge improvement in the user experience. The time it took to actually get to content was just reduced drastically. And we also saw a ton of metric wins here. So MWeb users were up 105% year over year, and we actually increased our signups by 700%. You can imagine the team was pretty stoked. So what are the key takeaways? First, set up a super clear process that works for your team. Process seems a little scary, but just a little extra work can actually drive efficiency and effectiveness on your teams. Second, define the MVP. Make sure everyone is on board around what you're building. And then lastly, and I think most importantly, speak and learn the language of your cross-functional partners. Understand how to learn data and interpret it and incorporate it into your designs. Thank you.